everybody, and welcome back to Quintin and Chris's Bad Idea House. We make fun of ourselves for having bad ideas for our journalism. There are no bad ideas. There's only ideas that don't go anywhere because they're impossible.
I tell you what, was a bad idea. Spending the last 5 to 6 months working on stories about Valve and completely burning out my brain. But
you have another. What you talk? I literally know that you're working on something relatively serious right now that will be revealed in a few months.
So this is maybe somewhat related to the bad idea that I'm going to talk about as well, which was I'll give you the title that I came up with.
Okay. Do I know about this?
Yeah, I think so. Chris's desperate attempts to speak to somebody, anybody, about Disco Elysium.
Oh, right, okay. You know, the last Bad Idea House was literally
Also
me trying to talk about Disco Elysium, and it didn't go anywhere.
You had that button, and I grabbed it from you, however many months ago that was, and carried on running. Mostly because, well, things have escalated with that game and that studio since then.
Well, also, we live in the same city as...
Yeah, so this is part of it, right?
As Robert Kurvitz.
So last year, when the news broke that 3 of the founding members of Zaum had been forced out by the CEO of the. It's a whole thing. You know what? I'll do bullet points of what happened. The three founding members forced out. The CEO is thought to have bought a majority stake in the company using money that they claim he stole from the company to do it. And it just seems like an absolute shit show. There's also stuff that has come from the other side, in which Robert Kurvitz, the lead designer of Disco Elysium, has been accused of maybe having been like a bad boss as well. It's really unclear what exactly the hell has been going on over there, and I really want to know, like everyone does. I really want to know what actually happened over the last year or so, and also, like, is Disco Elysium gone? Is it still happening? Like, who owns it? What's it going to become? Has capitalism claimed it, or what exactly is happening there? And in my desperate attempts to speak to anybody about that, not only did I send emails, but because we live in the same city, I wrote a handwritten letter. Because it's interesting, Zaum also has like a Brighton studio here as well.
Yeah.
So it really feels like this massive story is happening, and it's happening in our city and also Estonia.
Does it make you feel weird that you have now delivered a handwritten, probably painstakingly, like you thought about what was in that note for a long time? Yeah. Posted it through his door. He didn't respond. He doesn't want to talk to you.
Yes.
You are continuing to try to put together a video on Disco Elysium.
So yes, there's a line to walk with this stuff, of course, and it's, to be clear, we contacted the people involved by email, one handwritten note, only one, and then not hearing anything, we have not been in contact since. However, the story is progressing, and it's, I don't know, it's unclear. So here's why I think this is something that I would really like to try and cover if we can. There is a narrative forming right now that, and it may even be the true narrative, I don't know, but there's a narrative forming that the true artists of Disco Elysium, or at least the founding members of that, have been forced out by evil capitalism.
Yes.
Right? And that this is yet another example of an artist being punished by a system so much bigger and so much crueler than they can contend with. And because of how much people love this game and this world and the people involved in making it, that narrative is set in, which can be tricky for a couple of reasons, because there are still people at the studio who are also not necessarily the CEO, who are, you know, putting their love and their craft into working on it, and the narrative is kind of moving on past that fact and leaving Zaum in this really weird space where people don't seem to know how to.
You don't know how to feel. It's a very peculiar situation, because like leftist Twitter is raring to go. Like, they're frothing at the mouth, ready to be like, oh my god, I can't believe the company would treat these two people so bad. And then occasionally I've been in the position of, like, even with my friends being like, well, hang on, because we don't know.
Exactly, and I would really like to know. I'm also one of, like, I absolutely love Disco Elysium. I think it's an incredible thing that the team involved with it seem really interesting, and I can't help but fall into that narrative as well. And again, it might be the truth, but we just don't know what's going on, and that feels like a problem. It feels like this,
a problem we could solve theoretically.
Maybe if at some point we can speak to anybody. just
to offer some candid, thoughts, which off the top of my dome to the nice kind people who support us on Patreon, does this represent us getting into a bad situation? Because you and I just spent the last 6 months researching Valve.
Yeah.
Because we felt that people need to know. And it took us ages. It was bad for our time, our mental health. Traffic's not like blowing the doors off anything. You and I are both also really interested in Disco Elysium. Are we just getting distracted and following the like Zaum and Disco down trails that will
I mean, it will really kind of depend on what legal battles play out over the next year or so. I guess there is stuff like in the works.
And an Amazon series, right?
Yeah, an Amazon series potentially, or at least the options to it, and who knows what the next game is meant to be. Like there are job postings for.
They are hiring for sure.
Yeah, like maybe some kind of sci-fi take on it. I don't know. Who knows? But it's the fact that so many of the key people involved in this story, whatever's happening, live either in Brighton or London, and like we're right here, and it feels mad not to.
Well, either they're in Brighton and we're right here, or there's stuff happening in Estonia, and we of all video channels have the ability and the will and the money to go to Estonia, shove a mic in someone's face.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I feel like Disco Elysium is just going to keep appearing in these Bad Idea House videos from time to time, as we find new and interesting ways to not make videos about Disco Elysium.
Oh my God. Okay, well, you've sort of ducked this by doing something that may be a bad idea. I'm going to give you a straight up, not just one bad idea, because we haven't done a bad idea for a while. I'm going to give you 2 bad ideas that are related by a theme. The theme is fandom.
Fandom?
Okay, yeah. So you have noticed that something I like to do in my work is go into weird communities and be like, what's going on? So this took the form of 2 videos, both of which would have been good that I can't do for different reasons. So first off, you're aware of fan fiction, right?
I've heard of it.
So real person fiction, or RPF, is fan fiction about real human beings.
Right, yeah.
Like if the people at People Make Games were like, I love Chris and Quins, what if they kissed? Here's my 50,000 word thing. So that kind of splits the fandom community in half, because some people think it's immoral and some people don't. But what I found out that I thought was super cool is, do you know the sport that has the largest RPF community?
Ice hockey.
Sorry, what was that, Chris? Is it football? Despite it being the most... Well, Chris, you think so because it's the most popular sport in the world, but no, it's actually ice hockey.
Wow,
yeah,
sorry,
I know, it's crazy. So I thought, ice hockey's not hugely popular, but it has the largest RPF community.
Right. Wow.
And I thought, great, let me talk to these people. Let me find out why they care about ice hockey so much. And there are some really interesting stuff. Part of it is, it runs the gamut. Part of it is, for example, racism. It's got a lot of white players. But then there's some interesting stuff, like it's also because in ice hockey you can be quite individualistic. Like if you're playing American football or soccer, you're in your position. A goalie's going to do what a goalie's going to do. Ice hockey is way more fluid, and it means that players can express themselves by being like, I'm just going to go over here and take a shot, or I'm going to literally punch this guy in the face.
Sure.
So it means players express themselves more, and so that lends itself to fan fiction, because you're like, you can kind of imagine more going on.
I mean, it still seems like such a leap that that's the sport, but
I think it's, and
that's why it's interesting.
Then plus I got into like, I don't know, you get into fun stuff of like, there's RPF of athletes who turn out to do criminal, or be accused of criminal stuff. So it's like, if you've got RPF about an ice hockey player who's like, you think he's so cute, and then suddenly he's in the headlines for like drunk and disorderly, what that then creates a split between the
idealized version,
correct, and the real person, and so that creates another sub-schism, if you will, within the fandom. Look, I thought this was interesting. Anyway, so I spoke to a journalist who's an expert in fan fiction to see if she would want to be interviewed for the piece, and she told me, you can't do this video because fan fiction communities do not want to be talked about.
Right.
So it would be basically me just being like, hey everybody, come and look at this community in my video, isn't it cool? And that community would be like, we do not want to be exposed. So then that video is dead in the water. But what if I covered a fan fiction community that no longer exists? Can't shame them. What if those people also wanted to be talked about? Perfect crime.
Yeah.
So I got interested in a kind of Minecraft fan fiction. So there is a famous Minecraft zeitgeisty piece of culture called Dream Survival Multiplayer. It's a Minecraft YouTuber called Dream who did a survival multiplayer server.
Recently did a face reveal.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
People were like, you look like a
normal, yeah, you look like a white streamer. So basically Dream Survival Multiplayer was kind of interesting because it started off as a bunch of streamers hanging out on the same survival multiplayer server in Minecraft and getting up to no good. Then they started turning it into something more like wrestling, where there were plot lines that were all fake.
Yep.
And so it became this long-running soap opera that was kind of interesting. Some guy on Tumblr made fun of this by saying, I hate the fandom of Dream Survival Multiplayer. It always reads stuff like, oh no, Mr. Penis was so moving in the electric chair scene. I can't remember it, but it's a specific.
Behind to see how close.
How close the child is. There's children over there as well.
Right.
This is basically, how loud can Quintin yell the word penis?
Not very.
So basically this was a 3-sentence joke making fun of the Dream Survival Multiplayer server. People took that meme and expanded it into a whole penis multiplayer fandom
Classic Tumblr
thing. Yeah, it went haywire. I learned about this from excellent culture journalist Ryan Broderick. Basically, it turned into fan art, fan fiction, expanded lore, like location guides, glossaries, all for a Minecraft survival server that never existed.
Again, I'm in. So what's the problem?
Problem is, I spent 72 hours. Do the people at home know? Did they know how often I need to DM teens for this job? And it's like, yeah, I was in multiple Discord servers. I must have sent 30 or 40 direct messages to teens being like, hey kids, do you want to talk to me? Yeah, it's the Steve Buscemi with the skateboard being like, do you want to tell me about the time you invented a story? Some of them got back to me and were willing to talk because this no longer exists, right? It was a zeitgeist pandemic thing.
Yep.
Some of them got back to me and said, yeah, I'll be able to talk, and then ghosted me.
Right.
Most of them didn't reply. Basically, they all have moved on to other things and have other things going on.
I think so. Ultimately, it comes back to the same thing of like people that write this fan fiction
they're not really interested in, and also,
interviewed about it.
and I think it's more magical to them. The serious answer, I think, if you're part of a fandom, whether that's Blazeball or Dream Survival Multiplayer or whatever, you're part of that fandom. It feels so real and exciting to you, and it's kind of like when the lights come on at a club at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
A journalist coming up. Not that either of us have experienced that, but when journalists just do a candid interview of like, so there's this character called Mr. Penis, and you wrote 50,000 words. There's a 50,000 word fanfic I was going to read. Can you talk to us about that? Suddenly it seems ridiculous. Exactly. The lights come on and it seems stupid. So I think really they correctly realized that even if I with a light touch was to just try and be like, so tell me about this and take it seriously, I think maybe they just knew it would be dumb, or maybe even just talking to me about it
ruins the magic.
Ruins it somehow, yeah. So 2 examples. If you know a fandom that wants to
desperately wants the attention,
but somehow the fandom was robust enough it wouldn't be destroyed by us doing a video about it. Oh, Blazeball did that. Blazeball's gone to,
That's true. Well, okay, interesting. So, we will probably talk about Disco Elysium at some time.
We can't have Bad Idea House just be Disco House.
You will inevitably talk about another fandom that you've tried to elbow your way into.
I want Bad Idea House to show the breadth of different stories that you and I do. I don't want it to just be us talking about the same thing every time.
They're in the city. They're right.
They're in this. They are right here.
Could be anywhere else.
It depends on how the court case goes. Maybe they'll, maybe they'll leave Brighton if the founders. You'll see. You might see. We'll see, says Chris. He might not see.
Relationship to this story of this game.
Okay.
Thank you for.
Thank you for donating
to Bad Idea House.
Didn't think this through.
I've got a big.
I got weird. Oh goodness me.